Okay, this is ArcGIS 10 Interface Basics Part 2. We're going to continue on looking at menus, windows, tools, table of contents, and catalog and attribute tables, and expand out a little bit on what we covered during the last session. I have a map up of New York State, and over here in the table of contents we can see the layers that are being displayed. Those being displayed, of course, are the ones checked on the checkbox. They are contained inside this data frame called layers. And keep in mind that we can rearrange these by clicking and dragging them and put one on top of the other. So that's how you rearrange your data sets, and they're drawn from the bottom up. Just a little recap, lesson of the very basic stuff. Now in this session I want to start right out with looking at two menus. I want to look at the View menu and the Bookmarks menu. And under the View menu, if I click on that View menu in the top left here, we see the menu options. And the only ones we're going to talk about today are called Data View and Layout View. Currently we're seeing the Data View. This is the view in which you can display your maps, pull in your background information, do your analyses, key into your study areas, do all of those types of things. You're capable of putting on labels on, as well as annotation and all sorts of things here inside this data view. In ArcGIS you can only see one data view at a time, what is called a data frame. So a data view is only going to show one data frame at a time. You can add more data frames, but you're only going to be able to see the active one at any one time. And we'll go into how you create data frames and what the advantage of having multiple data frames is a little later. The other option under that View menu was Layout View. And if we click on that, it's going to change quite a bit what we see here. And you notice a couple of things. You notice, number one, we've switched and we see what appears to be a page in portrait orientation, and that's what it is. That's your default page layout for your map. And notice that it has now updated the data frame, drawn my base map, which again, this base map, my background data is being pulled from the internet, used from base maps provided by ArcGIS Online. And it shows me a default page layout. I've got a couple items in here of a scale bar down here. I've got a little north arrow down here. Those are things you can add into your layout view to make a map. And the layout view where you create your map. And it automatically, as soon as you switch to the layout view, if you have not brought your layout toolbar into your ArcMap document, it then displays it for you. And this toolbar right here, the layout toolbar, can be docked just like anything else. We can pull it up here and dock it. And the tools are similar to the tools that you would have in your data view. The difference is, of course, they work within the layout view and they work somewhat differently. Because you may want to zoom in to any portion of your layout view and say, gee, what does this scale bar really look like? We can zoom into that without changing the data frame view. And if I zoom to the whole page, you'll see we haven't changed this, and so forth. So that's why we have different tools, and we'll go into those a lot more on those different tools and how you actually create a complete layout for your map layout. But these are the two different views we have. We could get to them through this view menu. You only have one layout view per map document, but you can have many data frames and thus many data views available for your map document. The other thing I wanted to talk about was bookmarks. So let me flip back to my view here, up here to data view, and we're going to look at bookmarks a little bit. Bookmarks menu is right up here, and you can see I have some bookmarks here called Albany, Buffalo, and Rochester, and they are already created. And bookmarks allow you to zoom into a fixed extent, allows you to create a flow that you can review your data sets with. Let me turn on roads here. And it's great for editing and things like that, where you can quickly key into certain areas showing exactly what you want and then review that information without constantly trying to get the right scale, trying to get the right information in there. So if you go to a bookmark, if we wanted to compare these loop roads around these major cities, we can go to our bookmarks and pop to Rochester, go over to Albany, and without spending a lot of time reorienting ourselves. They're very easy to create. If we go back to our counties layer and right click on it and say zoom to layer, we'll zoom out again. And I'm going to use the zoom in tool to go into the Syracuse area to create a new bookmark. And perhaps I want to create a bookmark that shows this loop road here around Syracuse. To do that, all I do is find the extent that I'm interested in, zoom in and out or whatever, and then go to the bookmarks and say create. And I have to just give it a name and say OK. And it gives it a name, puts it in my list, and there it is. Now if you have a lot of these bookmarks and you want to retain them and use them in other map documents, the Manage Bookmarks option under that menu allows you to do that type of thing. We have the names here. We can double click on them essentially to change the name, and we can retype in a new name. You can reorder how they appear in the list, and down below you can load and save, so you can have a series of bookmarks that you use over and over again, and just pull them into different map documents. Alright, so let's use these bookmarks that I have here and go back to, say, the Rochester area with the inner loop. And so here's the inner loop area, and I'm just going to look a little bit at some of the capabilities to select features and select elements and do the Identify tool. The Identify tool is this blue icon up here with the eye in it. Again, I have tips on turned on so you can see it there. If I click on that tool and then come down here, I can click on any of my features in my map. If I click out here in Nowheres, I get basically the counties of Monroe, and that's because that's selectable, and I can identify it. At the top here, if you notice, I can identify topmost layer, visible layers, selectable layers, all layers, or I can specifically say which layer I want to do an identify on. So let's say roads, so we don't get big flashing things like that when we don't hit a road. We get nothing. So let's pick a road here, click on that, and we get the Rochester Inner Loop Highway. In here is all the information in the attribute table. And the Identify tool allows you to just quickly look at the information associated with your features on your map. And if we want to look at, say, cities, we can click on that and click out to this city and pick that one. And that's Rochester. That's the center for the Rochester area, at least in my map. Okay, so that's the Identify tool. Great for checking out your elements, your features on your maps. Now, we also have another tool over here right next to it called Select Elements tool. And what that allows us to do is select different elements. We can create graphics on our map. In our data view, we can create graphics on our layout view. So we're going to pull up the Draw toolbar. To do that, you right-click in the gray area and go to Draw. There's the toolbar. Let's just grab right here a call-out button. We have a number of little tools we have to write text. We can use a little call-out, and we can just click and drag out here, and then type in our information in the call-out box, and we can call it the inner loop. And then just click anywhere else, and then we got our inner loop call-out box. We have other things under here we can do. We can also add in graphics circles. So if you're interested in an area of interest and you want to identify a certain radius, and if you look down here in the lower left, down here, the radius is being shown. So you can set the certain radius to, that's 300 meters around that intersection. And you can, of course, fill these, make them different colors, and so forth. The basic thing is you can create all these little graphics on the screen, and you can use this Select Elements tool to select any graphic and modify it. And you can move it. You can have this point up to there if that's what you want. If you decide that's not the intersection of interest, you can click on it, as I'm doing, and then drag it to another intersection and so forth. So you can move these things around using this Select Elements tool. The other option for selecting things is a little different. Let's just I'm clicking on these with this and selecting them and then going to delete them. Same thing down here and delete that. Then there's this Select Features tool. And what Select Features allows us to do, if we click on it, and there are a number of options again for Select Features, clicking the drop down list, we can select by a rectangle, polygon, and so forth, is that we can select, say, the road network in here, and we just click here and drag. I can select a few roads, and I get all the road layers that fell in that area. That selected set will show up in my attribute table. So here's the roads selected. If I right click on roads and open the attribute table, there the attribute table for the roads undocked. I can bring it down. And this is showing me all the roads that I have available in this area. Let me dock this down below. And we'll just scroll. There we go. And of course, each record is associated with a feature in my data set. And I can click on the table of content or on the attribute table, and it will highlight the appropriate feature on my map. So the selection tool up here allows you to do essentially a selection by a graphic area. You identify the area and it'll select all the features within that area. And when you're done, you can clear the selection by clicking here and clearing it. Now there's another way you can clear it. You can clear it down here. Down in the table, there's an option to clear as well. And keep in mind, because these are linked, it doesn't matter which one you do, it's going to be cleared. Over in the table of contents now, we might want to know, one of the things we have is we have a current listing by drawing order. That's the default. Now, there's other ways we might want to view this data set. And two of the ways I'm going to look at is the source. We can, if we click right here on the what looks like a geodatabase symbol, it will show us where the data is coming from. In this case, if I highlight that, it's coming from the New York State Geodatabase, which is a file geodatabase, excuse me. And these are the feature classes within the file geodatabase. And down below, the National Geographic is coming from an online source from ESRI. So this tab here shows us where our data is coming from with regards to either the hard drive or the network. And that's important because sometimes you may be pulling in data that you're not aware of. It may be perhaps from an old data set, and you need to know that. Or if you're going to be packaging this information up or updating things, and you want to know where to put it or where to grab it from. Then the other icon to the right of that one is called List by Visibility. If I click on that, I will see my layers shown, and these are the visibility toggles on the left side. So I can see that, okay, cities is, this tells me it's selectable. I can select cities, I can select roads, which I did. And I can turn that on and off, or I can actually make the cities and roads, turn them on and off here. So if I turn off the roads, it comes down below, it becomes in a pile or a list called not visible. If I turn off the towns, they too become part of this not visible area. This is just essentially a shortcut to turning things off and on within the drawing order. It accomplishes the same thing. Okay, so let's turn the roads back on. We'll turn the towns back on. Let's revisit the roads attribute table. So we're going to open that up now. And you see there's nothing here. That's because down here at the bottom I have it set for showing selected records, and we have no selected records available at the time. So let's switch back to show all records. Click on this one right here, and we'll see all of our records. Now let's go back up and use our tool up here for selecting features, and we'll reselect a few roads. Down here, if we look at the bottom of our attribute table, it says 5 out of over 15,000 roads available have been selected. If I want to see them, I can click on this show selected records, and they will be highlighted, and everything else will be hidden. And there are my selected records. Within that area, I can I can switch my selection. There's some tools here to switch selection set. So if I don't want the 5 but I want everything else, I can just switch it around and back and forth. Now, as I showed you, these are related to each other, and we can do that as well. We can highlight these things. Now, what I want to do next is I want to show you what happens when you bring another table in. So let's pull this table up where we got some more room in the table window, and we're going to open up the cities attribute table. Right click on it, get the context menu, open up attribute table. It opens it up within the table window, and you notice there's a tab down below. There's a tab for roads, which is grayed out, and then there's cities, which is our current table. And yes, we can flip back and forth and view these, but lots of times you want to view your tables side by side or one over top of the other and so forth. And the way you can easily do that is to simply grab one of these and position it above the other. So if I grab roads and I say I want to put roads on top, again I have these docking triangles. So I'll grab that and put roads up on top, and the cities becomes part of the bottom. And that's the way you reorder your tables. There's lots of ways you can do them and get them to be in the form that you need, showing the fields and so forth that you need. Okay, the next thing we might want to do is I want to look at catalog. So let's close this table and let's go over to catalog for just if I come down here, I see New York State is highlighted. This is my geodatabase, my default geodatabase. And if you're wondering what that is, well, every map document now in ArcGIS 10 is going to have a default geodatabase associated with it. And if I go up to the file menu over here and click on that, I can look at the map document properties. This is where you can put a title on your map. You're certainly going to have a summary and description available, especially if you're going to upload this into ArcGIS Online. I believe a summary is required. And you can put tags, hyperlinks, and so forth on it. But down below here, you'll notice that there is a default geodatabase. And when you start a new map, when you open an existing map, you'll have the option there to change that, to point to a new geodatabase. If you don't select one, it will by default create one or use the default geodatabase that's in your user space. And it's very easy to set the default geodatabase or to change it. You can do it through this browser menu available within the map documents property and select it, or it's as easy as coming over to the catalog over here on the right, finding a different geodatabase that you might want to use. So I can click on another folder, go to another location, anywhere, and find another geodatabase, say this one. If I right click, I can just say make default, and you notice it gets highlighted. It's now going to be the default geodatabase for my map. If I go to map documents, it's right there. Doesn't make a lot of sense for this, so I'm going to change it back. Come back to here, go back to the right one, again right click on it and say make this my default geodatabase. And that's the geodatabase that it will want to put scratch data in. For output data, that's where it's going to default and so forth, and it becomes part of your map document. Inside this geodatabase, everything in here, these are called feature classes right here, very similar to a shapefile sort of function inside your geodatabase. And in addition, we can, besides having geodatabases, these are folders, and we can create shortcuts to our folders. And you notice I have quite a few folders here, and I also have some folders that just say New York State data, and those are actually shortcuts, and you can rename them. And it's very easy to connect to a folder and create a shortcut. Up here is a connect to folder tool with a little plus on it. Click on that, you get a browser button, you navigate to the folder where you want to connect. It can be anything, say Dell, and say OK, and it creates a connection to that folder. And if I click on it, I'll see all the folders in there, and any extension, any files with the correct extension or any spatial data will be shown. It allows you to create shortcuts to folders that may be down 3, 4, 5, 10 levels, and makes your catalog much easier to work with and much faster to navigate around.